Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Logan is once again with us. Logan, how you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back, Jamie. How are you doing?
Good, good. The only downside is it's starting to get warm over here, so now all the British people are going to start complaining that's too hot. Other than that, it's been a bloody good week. What can I say? And when it comes to video games, we have a lot of news to talk about. Some stuff we didn't get to cover last week because Logan wasn't here. And there's been like several big releases in the past week, both of which we have to talk about. Before we get into all that stuff, I have to make this clear at the beginning of the show. Due to legal reasons, Xbox and Compulsion Games provided me with a review code of South of Midnight. If you've been paying attention to the channel, you may be wondering why am I talking about this now. I'll get into it in a bit. But they provided a code. I've already played the game. I'll get into it in a bit. But anyway, it's been a long week. Logan, what have you been playing?
Well, speaking of South of Midnight, I've been playing that lately. Really enjoying it. I kind of was busy on some other games when it first came out,
Yeah.
but I was able to find a way to kind of, sneak it in there and have it as a change of pace with RPGs and stuff I've been playing currently. And I really love it. And the Tim Burton kind of stop motion gothic vibes and characters, the music, the flow. It's a nice it's a nice kind of straightforward adventure that isn't like a massive RPG like some of these other heavy hitters that we'll be talking about. And I'm really enjoying it. Been playing that. I finished Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. It was fantastic. It was, as awesome as I remembered back in the day. I actually finished it fully this time, the final bosses. And looking forward to jumping into Razor's Edge. I've been playing that. This new mission dropped for Power Wash Sim that was a sweet shop. So it's like, like cookies and candies and waffles and ice cream and stuff. That was fun. Played through that. And I'm gonna start up on Expedition 33 later tonight. Looking forward to that. I know that's one you have to, be fully alert and fully locked in for because it's a heavy hitter. So I'm looking forward to that one and been playing Oblivion, and she's just as sweet as she was yesterday, like
Yeah.
2006. It's just my goodness, incredible. We'll dive into that later on the topic, but my word, there's a reason why Jamie and I always talk about that generation. It just nothing hits like it.
Yeah. I've been playing a bunch of different games. I'll get the South of Midnight thing out of the way. So, super long story short, I'm gonna be completely transparent with people. I signed up to get a review code literally months ago, and I didn't get it. So I got the deluxe edition upgrade. Got to play it a few days early, and all that stuff. I'll go over my quick impressions in a second. But I actually got offered a review code about 3 days ago. So I had a couple of options. I just decided to take it and do a new mini review of it because it is a good game. I think a lot of people will enjoy playing because like Logan, I do play a lot of like open world RPGs a lot, and sometimes you can get burnt out. And I think it's very nice to have a linear game in between. And this is one of those games. It took me 12 hours, I think 52 minutes to finish, and I really enjoyed my experience with it. It does have a whole Tim Burton esque feel with it, which I think works really well with the whole like deep south thing they've got going on and the voodoo stuff. The music elements in the game is probably my favorite part of the game. The combat is fun, but the only downside of the game is that combat can get a bit repetitive. There's only like 5 or 6 enemy types, and enemies don't necessarily telegraph their moves that well. But outside of that, you're basically playing for the story and the world that they created. And each level is kind of split up into its own individual story where there's a narrative arc connecting all the levels. That works really well. And just the music-based levels, especially in Chapter 3 and 4 and 5, it's just so good. The boss fights in this game are really good. There's a boss fight where you basically fight this giant spider, and it's the best boss battle in the game. It's so much fun. So if you're looking for a shorter experience, I highly recommend it. It's got some light Metroidvania elements to the game, and also, again, it took me 14 hours 52 minutes. I did go looking for a bunch of collectibles. I think most people will finish this game in around 12 hours. Difficulty wise, I think the game's very fair. It has got a bunch of difficulty modes and a bunch of different accessibility options. So if you're looking for a third-person action-adventure game that doesn't really take you too long to go through, I highly recommend it. Fun game, and it's one of those games I hope that it gets a sequel because it would actually benefit so much from just advancing its combat mechanics, different enemy types, world building, and all that stuff. But other games I've been playing is Expedition 33. This game it's amazing. That's the best way to put it. And someone actually replied to one of my Expedition 33 posts the other day because I was praising the game, and someone said I'm only praising the game to get Twitter likes. Now,
You're such a shill, Jamie.
yeah, pretty much. But the thing is, I've been praising this game for about a year, right? It was announced a year ago, and I've been in love with the idea since. And, actually playing it in action, it's just so good. And, I've been trying to tell people this is going to be a good game. It's going to stand out. And, in the past when I've told people that there's going to be a game around the corner that people should pay attention to, sometimes there's the occasional dud, but most of the time, I'm going to be pretty humble and say this, admittedly. Most of the time I'm right. This is a special game. Its theme, it's French setting. It's like an alternate dimension France type thing. The lore building in the game, the visual aesthetic, like the fact that 30 people built this game, right? We spend maybe 10 minutes every single show complaining about the state of the game industry and how you have these super inflated game budgets made by teams of sometimes 300-400 people, and you have this game and it's made by I think actually 33 people, ironically, and it costs $49.99 in dollars. It launched in Game Pass, and it's off to a huge success where they got 1 million sales in I think 48 hours. And there was so much positive talk behind the scenes for this game that companies were trying to get the exclusive rights to make a movie on it back in January. So that's how much positive talk this game has had, even since before it came out. So you have this brand new IP made by such a tiny studio, a new studio as well. This is the studio's first game. It's made by a bunch of ex-Ubisoft developers, and what they've made is pretty amazing. We always talk about AAA, AA, indie. I honestly don't know where to put this, because if you look at the size of the team, the way it's being marketed, for all intents and purposes, it's a AA game. But it's one of the best games of the year, and it wouldn't surprise me if this wins Game of the Year across most game outlets. So, out of the gate, it's beautiful. The game is horrifically, how should I put it? Hauntingly beautiful is how I describe it. The story out of the gate gets your attention, and I have got clips going on during the podcast. Those aren't spoilers. The game literally opens up like that. It is kind of strange because normally there's one or two characters in most RPGs I can't stand, but in this game they make all the characters extremely likable straight away. You instantly feel for these people, and it's just such a unique setting and game world. And the combat. Let's talk about the combat. Anyone that's played Persona or Lost Odyssey are gonna feel at home with this one. there's so much Lost Odyssey in this game. I would actually like to talk to one of the developers at some point to ask them if they've played it, because there's Lost Odyssey DNA in this. A lot of Persona as well. But the combat is so much fun, and even if people aren't used to, turn-based combat, I know some people find it off-putting. I say don't let it put you off. There's active time battle mechanics in this where you have to dodge and parry. Try it out. Especially if you have Game Pass, you have no barrier of entry. Just play that game. Hell, if you want, put it on easy mode, right? The only thing that's different with easy mode is the amount of damage you receive from enemies, right? So if you don't like turn-based combat, put it on easy, enjoy the story. But the combat it's amazing. This game takes risks because I see on a weekly basis people complain that they don't like turn-based combat. And, relatively, turn-based combat is kind of niche because we don't get a lot of turn-based games now outside of Persona in the AAA and AA space. So you have this new studio with making this new IP with turn-based combat and, not a ton of marketing because it's a smaller studio. And they have this huge success straight away. So, I think a lot of people are going to love this game, even if they don't like turn-based combat. And the funny thing is, one of my best friends who I, play Call of Duty with and go to the pub with every so often, I asked him, what did he think of Expedition 33? Because he doesn't really play turn-based games. He loves the combat, right? This is someone that plays first-person shooters a lot, who's basically a pro-level player at Call of Duty. I've just inflated his ego saying that, but he's loving the game, And funny thing is, I asked him straight away, I was like, does the main character look familiar to you? He's like, yeah, Robert Pattinson. Everyone thinks the main character model is literally
Gustav.
Yeah, Gustav.
He looks just like him.
Yeah, even the way his face moves as he talks, and as someone that watched Mickey 17 recently and the Batman, that is blatantly Robert Pattinson. So when they did the live action movie, I wouldn't be shocked if they try and get him. Although I do think the lead voice actor who plays him, he's also Daredevil in the Marvel show. They really need to get him on board. This is his first time voice acting in a video game, and he knocks it out of the park. This is triple S tier voice acting in a video game. I've seen people compare Gustav to, Troy Baker, level performance. Honestly, I think it's even better. The voice acting in this game is movie tier quality. You even have Andy Serkis in the game. Even though I'm maybe 6 or 7 hours in, can't remember. You only see Andy Serkis a few times at that point, but Andy Serkis knocks it out of the park every single game he's in. Every single time. He was in, I believe he was in Heavenly Sword. And
no, he was in Enslaved Odyssey to the West. He might have been in Heavenly Sword as well, but I know he was in Enslaved.
Yeah, I know he was in Enslaved, but I could have sworn he was in Heavenly Sword. But either way, the guy clearly knows what he's doing. Again, triple S tier quality performance. I mean, there's nothing really bad I can say about it, other than the fact that, and me and a lot of other people want the same thing: photo mode. This game screams photo mode. It is utterly beautiful. The whole world looks like it's been painted, and it kind of has been if you've watched the story. But man, I'm so happy this game exists. I feel like, as much as we make fun of the industry, and I could actually make fun of the movie industry for the same thing. Weirdly enough, which I'm going to talk about, which has Robert Pattinson in it, I think the movie industry is in an absolute state at the minute, where everything's failing because there's nothing original, and then we get Mickey 17. I know it's a movie, Logan, but did you get to watch Mickey 17 yet?
I haven't yet, but now that it's well, home video dates me, but
yeah,
now that it's at home, I'll watch it. And I also plan to go see Sinners, which apparently has been doing very, very well, as well as an original film.
Yeah, so you have like two new IPs there, basically. I know Mickey 17 is based on a book, but for all intents and purposes, we can call it a new IP. And I just say Joe and chat mentioned that he was the main villain, Andy Serkis, in Heavenly Sword. So there you
Okay,
go.
it's been a while. My
Uh,
apologies.
I mean, I haven't played Heavenly Sword since it came out on the PS3, so it's been a while. Um, but like Mickey 17. What's that film called? Sinners.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
a vampire movie by Ryan Coogler.
yeah. Like that looks fantastic. It's a new IP. It's like there is some glimmer and hope for the movie industry, and my God, it pains me that Mickey 17 failed at the box office. Incredible film. It's so weird. I'm surprised it even exists. But this video game in the gaming space, it really makes me happy it exists because it's so risky. You have this studio basically come out of nowhere, putting out a game where, like, let's be honest, if this didn't have any marketing at all, it probably would have failed, right? There weren't really any big streamers playing it. The only marketing it did have is, the Xbox, game showcase and all that stuff. But like nobody was really talking about that game outside of me and a few other people. And thankfully, it's caught on. People are talking about it. It's got insane word of mouth, and it's this turn-based JRPG made by a French developer. You'll love to see it. Now, Logan, I know you haven't played it yet, but what's your thought on everything you've seen and heard? Because Expedition 33 has been all over the place this past week.
Well, first off, I have to give a hearty congratulations to the team and the studio because for a team that small to like make a game that sells 1 million copies in 48 hours is just otherworldly incredible success. And I mean, there are some major games that have come out that haven't hit 1 million. Like, just being honest, like super expensive games that have come out from some big studios that have failed and didn't hit that number. Like, that is a big number for a studio, especially for their first title ever. That's just tremendous congratulations to them. It's currently like for those who care about ratings and stuff, it's in the 90s, I know, like 92 plus on most of the critic stuff I've seen. Like word of mouth is incredible. All the things I have seen and watched on it and read about it, dev interviews, behind the scenes, all that stuff just makes me so excited to dive in later tonight. And honestly, like before diving in, I'll give my pre-review, I guess, is that in the best way possible, it feels like, Lost Odyssey, like a French version of Lost Odyssey.
Yeah.
But obviously different story and stuff. But like the amount of emotional heft, the music, the characters, the lore, the combat, the animations, just the world building, everything. Like there are a few games that have ever made me emotional or like when I sat down I'm like, oh, I sit there and I'm just like pondering what have I just experienced. And Lost Odyssey is one of them. And I can already tell before diving into this one, the vibes I'm getting is this one's going to hit me the same way.
Yeah.
And that's about the highest praise I can give a game. So I cannot wait to play it. It's one for sure I'm going to buy, even though it's in Game Pass. It's one I want to have. I want to experience this one, all its secrets and lore. Just support excellence and support the studio and devs. And, just I bought the upgrade thing already
Yeah.
so I could have the extra fits and weapons and stuff. And then I'll buy the game after I've played through it. But yeah, I cannot wait to dive in. I'm so happy. I'm so happy a show has been greenlit or a movie. And yeah, it totally looks like Robert
Yeah.
Pattinson at home. But but yeah, Daredevil as the voice. and then Ben Starr's in it. The cast is incredible. I I cannot wait to play this game.
Yeah, I mean the prologue alone, and I've got footage going on in the background of the prologue. The prologue, like literally all you do in the prologue is you walk around, talk to random people, fight, do some little tutorial stuff. There's mime bosses basically spread throughout the entire game, and you can fight one in the tutorial if you want. It hits hard, but you can fight one if you want. But you get a cool little reward every time you beat one. It's usually like a piece of clothing or something. But no, the way the prologue ends, like you'll instantly be hooked. Because like I'm going to use the most British word I've ever used on this channel right now. When the prologue ended, I was flabbergasted. I was absolutely,
No, we use that here too. I hear you.
but I was absolutely speechless. Like it, so well done, and it's like the highest, like you said, the highest review user score on Metacritic ever. I mean, no wonder. The performance alone, like I haven't had any problems with the performance. And we've talked about this before, how AA games tend to never launch broken. This is another case of that. Um, I know we talk about this a lot. Like I think the AA space is just more interesting. They take risks, and again, they don't launch broken. It launched at $50. $50, right? Do you know what else launched at $50? RoboCop Rogue City, right? These $50 games are the way to go. Screw all this, $70, $80, $90, God forbid, whoever charges that amount. But like you can have a competent team of small people and put out a high quality product, and it just works. And this is it just shows. And that's basically what I've been playing. I've been playing Warzone as well, but I don't think people want to hear about me playing Warzone. I mean, it's the same thing basically every time. Get money, survive, win. Rinse and repeat. It's addictive, not going to lie, but it's basically the same thing over and over again. You know what? I think we should talk about Oblivion now, because it's going to be a long topic. Because Oblivion, before we get into the whole Fallout thing, Elder Scrolls 6, all that stuff, Oblivion remastered kind of like 2.5 years ago, or around 2 years ago, during the FTC, ABK, all that nonsense showcase, I should say court case. Microsoft basically leaked every Bethesda game in development, and people like myself and Logan were praying, like, let this be real, right? Because it was a real list. This wasn't some made-up list. But, games get cancelled all the time, and we're going to talk about some game cancellations in a bit, which I could, cry myself to sleep at night about. But Oblivion, there's basically been no leaks for 2 years outside of that one list. And then about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, we start hearing that, hey, Oblivion Remastered is going to get shadow dropped in April. I think it was the first week of April, the original rumor. And then nothing happened. And then it was the second week of April. And then the rumor was it's going to get shadow dropped during the Elder Scrolls Online event. So, as someone that doesn't play Elder Scrolls Online, I bloody watched that event. There was no Elder Scrolls Oblivion, remaster there. So I was sad. And some screenshots leaked. People were judging them because they were blurry and the color saturation wasn't high enough. And then a few days later, Microsoft puts out this little tiny teaser of just the Oblivion Gate image saying, tomorrow, tune in at this time. And what we got was this cool little 10-minute video by Bethesda, going over, hey, this is the legacy of Oblivion, and how they made the game, what made it so special, and then they showed the remaster. I'm using remaster in air quotes, and it blew people away. The game is like what we remembered at the time, but it looks better. The visuals are outstanding. The performance is better. It runs on Unreal Engine 5. It has gameplay improvements basically everywhere. You know, like the simple UI adjustments, controls more like a modern first-person fantasy RPG, and Virtuos Studio has been working on this for a couple of years. This is the same studio that's making Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is the remake of 3. They're also working on Dune Awakening, and they've knocked it out of the park. You know, we've been talking about this for 2 years now, and how Oblivion, in my opinion, is the better Elder Scrolls game when it comes to Oblivion versus Skyrim. It has the better main story. It has the better, I want to say, quests, and it's incredible what they've done with this game. And it was a shadow drop. They shadow dropped an Elder Scrolls game, right? That's how packed this year is, right? And how packed Microsoft's lineup is. They had to shadow drop an Elder Scrolls game. And, I've mentioned this on Boomstick Show before. As someone that did business at college, let me tell you, what Microsoft did doesn't make sense. It makes no sense at all that they shadow dropped a remake, I'm calling it a remake, of one of the most beloved games of all time without any marketing. And, within 48 hours, it got 200,000 concurrent players on Steam, top of the charts in a bunch of different countries on Xbox. Sure, it's the same on PlayStation. And just wondering, Logan, that didn't get announced for Switch, right?
No, it did not. At least not yet.
Not yet. But they've knocked it out of the park. And as someone that's been playing it, a couple hours a day, the magicalness, if that's a word I can use, it's still there. It feels like you're basically hopping in a time machine back to 2006, and you have that exact same feel as you did back then, but it's all shiny and new, and it plays better, it looks better. Even things like, the favorites menu works 100% of the time now, whereas before I thought it didn't work at all most of the time. Dungeons actually have lighting now, where you can actually see where you're going. The third-person camera is a proper third-person over-the-shoulder camera, which in the past, if you've played an Elder Scrolls game in third person, you really don't want to play it in third person, but they've actually made it enjoyable now. The first person mechanics, you have hit markers. So before, if you hit an enemy, you couldn't tell if you hit them with your weapon because enemies didn't react to hits, and there were no hit markers. Now enemies basically, blood comes out of them and they actually react, and your controller vibrates a little bit. So you basically get hit markers, and this team has done a beautiful job remastering this game. And they're calling it a remaster, even though fundamentally it's a remake. They've remade all the assets in the game. It's just using the original game's brain, so to speak. But man, I love this game. I've been loving it since the day it came out, and trying to go back to it, it's very archaic when it comes to its gameplay mechanics. But this new version, it's the way to go. The color palette, it is different, but it's not a bad thing. I think the new color palette actually makes it very refreshing. It kind of keeps the color palette sort of in tone with Skyrim, I think, which I think is completely fine. It's still more like, a summer setting compared to Skyrim. But, I've been talking non-stop about this for 10 minutes. Logan, what's your take? Because you've actually been playing Oblivion, and I know you liked Oblivion as much as me, but what's your take? Because, wow.
Oh, I'm blown away. Like, basically, every time I load it up and playing, it's like I have this stupid grin on my face. I'm just having a great time. It's just like I remember it, but better. And like I could definitely tell some things that they've kept the same versus others. Like we talked before the show, like they've kept some famous glitches in there,
Yeah.
like a retake on dialogue conversation, like some fun Easter eggs, like certain alchemists that in Skingrad, and like this orc stable owner, and they've added some new Easter eggs to stuff like Skyrim, like you can see the throat of the world now. and they've changed up and modernized a few things, but they've definitely stayed more true to Oblivion as well. Like, you still have to repair your weapons and armor. Like, that is one thing I kind of wish wasn't in this, to be honest, because like I never enjoyed that aspect, but it is true to Oblivion. So they've stayed even that true to it, and I just love the quest. The music is fantastic. Oblivion by far has the best story and quests, side quest, factions, like everything of the Elder Scrolls series. Like, I enjoyed Morrowind and I loved Skyrim, but Oblivion takes the cake for me. And this is the best possible version of it. Best looking, best running, best performance. The leveling up is easier, the customization is better, the blocking and combat is so much more refined. Um, there are still some, really funny kind of quirks to it that are true to Oblivion. Like, whenever you try to scale a mountain, I'm going up sideways with my horse
Yeah.
up a mountain, just like I did back in 2006. But that's just true to it. And the it I had forgotten how annoying vampires were in this game compared to some of the other Elder Scrolls, like contracting that horrific hemophilia or
Yeah.
whatever it was, and having to have remember to have cure disease potions or do that whole quest or stuff like that, and then the repair weapons and armor. Like, those are some older, more archaic systems you have to relearn. But I would still recommend this as the jumping in point
Oh yeah.
for Elder Scrolls. Like, for like you and me, like, this was our favorite one and we grew up with it, and so it's like, oh yeah, this is like yesterday, this is incredible but better. But for a lot of people, this might be their first Elder Scrolls,
Yeah.
and it is basically a new experience for so many people. So to drop basically a brand new Elder Scrolls of sorts out there to get everybody hyped up and jump in and get super engaged in the lore, give Bethesda a massive win because, we both liked Starfield, but there were some things about it that some folks were pretty negative about and didn't like. There was this whole cycle, which was psycho, but still, there was some energy out there that wasn't entirely positive for Bethesda. So to just drop this as a shadow drop, something Todd Howard has always wanted to do. He has said on record before that he wish he could just make a game and just say, "Go,
Yeah.
go have at it. It's done. It's out today. Go." And being able to do that now that they're with Xbox is awesome. And honestly, I think shadow dropping it from a business standpoint financially might not make some sense in some aspects, but I think word of mouth and reception and overall vibes wise, it makes perfect sense. Because just like Hi Fi Rush, you drop this sucker out there and everybody goes, "Oh my gosh, there's an Elder Scrolls game out. It's available today. I just download it on Game Pass and play it or pick it up on my system." And most people are at least familiar with the name Elder Scrolls. They don't have to do too much heavy lifting to figure out what it is. So they just jump in and they go at it, and there's not this review cycle or these, you know, basement dwelling types that are, going over every single grain of detail
Yeah.
or trying to nitpick everything to death and just being toxic, lifeless, you know, people about stuff. And they just go, "Hey, there's this, kick butt game that just came out and everybody loves it. We're already making memes about it and we're revisiting it, and the old heads are loving it, the new people are loving it, everybody's happy." And then you have, IGN or some other people try to rush reviews out
Oh
because
yeah.
it's already out there. And then, like I said, it's hilarious. As IGN had the gall to give it an 8, one of the best RPGs ever. I'm like, come on, really? And it just goes to show you that they're irrelevant when
Yeah,
it comes to something like this. Shadow drops make reviewers even more irrelevant than they are.
yeah.
So sorry, maybe that was a spitfire take, but
No, no, it's
I
fine.
just I think shadow drops are the great equalizer because it's like having a hair trigger, duelist shooter guy. He's just like bang before they can even react. So I think it's a good strategy if you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the IGN thing quickly. I was kind of appalled when they did. They basically put out a post saying, "Look, we have someone reviewing it. They want to play through most of the game, but if we had to give it a score right now, we'd give it an 8." That kind of rubbed me the wrong way because they gave the original game a 9, and this is
Mm-hmm.
better, right? Like as much as I've talked, positively about the original game, it's aged pretty badly. But this new version, it's the way to play, right? You're gonna have some purists that'll be like, "No, I only want to play the original," and they can still play it. But my God, like this new version, it's incredible. By the way, for people that don't know, this game scored 1 point higher than Concord. So yeah, that's IGN. And we all know what everyone says. You know what IGN stands for. You can't spell ignorant without IGN, because it's true. But the game itself's incredible. If you go from Skyrim to this, I think it's actually going to throw some people off because it's got some gameplay mechanics in which I think are way better. So, for instance, you have a dedicated magic button where,
Oh, so helpful.
yeah, in Skyrim, you don't really have that. You have magic basically on either of your hands. So you have to play completely differently. But in this, you can have a sword and a shield and use magic, which for me, chef's kiss. Like that's the way I play that game. Uh, I will say this, like as someone that I love lockpicking mini games in video games. Like I love them. In fact, I think the best lockpicking mini game is in Fallout 4. Uh, I literally, this is kind of sad. I actually look for locks to pick in that game just because I like it. Right. But in Oblivion, we've all seen the memes. Oblivion's lockpicking mechanic was terrible then, and it's terrible now. We could call it a
Oh, I
skill.
have PTSD again from it. It's
Yeah,
awful.
like they say there's a pattern to it where you have to make sure the that the pin goes up slowly. I call that no, I call BS on that. Right, I make so many saves before I open crates and chests because like I mess up all the time. Right, and using the auto lock picking mechanic, it'll go through like 10 picks and then it'll
Hmm.
unlock. Like, and then,
Even on easy.
yeah, yeah, it's the same thing on every difficulty. Like, you're absolutely screwed. But, like, yes, like Starfield has a unique lock picking mini game, which I like. Fallout, I think, that's the triple S tier lock picking mini game. But Oblivion, my God, I was really hoping they'd actually put in the Skyrim version, which is kind of like
Yeah,
Fallout.
same.
But they didn't, unfortunately. But outside of that, it's basically the perfect remake. Um, there's other things people have picked up on, which I don't even know if were in the original or not. So if you join the Fighters Guild and watch other fighters train, apparently you get XP, which
Hmm.
I don't know if that was in the original or not. But
The watching the blades at Ackerberry headquarters was in the original one, and
okay,
I know that levels up your blade and your shield by 1 point each if you watch them.
okay. Um, Another thing that's in the remake, and I think new players will actually appreciate this. And if you haven't started yet, I'm going to give you the best information possible. When you first get out into the open world, fast travel to the stable outside of the Imperial City and talk to the lady inside. She will give you a free horse with armor. For people watching on YouTube right now, the horse I've got right there with the armor, that was actually the horse armor you could buy back in the day. You can get that horse and that armor for free just go to the stable, say you will take any horse they have, and boom, you get a free horse with armor right at the beginning of the game. Which is super useful because you're going to be running around a lot. Another thing that's actually in the remake, and it's something I never thought they'd put in, is the fact that the entire map is open from the beginning of the game. Right? You can fast travel to any city from the start. So basically, the only
I remember that march to Kavach originally.
that was a long hike back then, but now you can just fast travel if you want. So basically, the only places you have to discover is things like dungeons, forts, Oblivion gates, that type of thing. But my God, that team has done wonders with that game, and it will be funny to see what Virtuos does in the future. We'll talk about Fallout in a bit because I bet their studio mobile phones and business phone is going off the charts since then, because universally this is beloved, right? Everyone's talking about it on social media. All the websites are talking about it. The memes from like 2006 are now new again, and I know last year we talked about how a remake shouldn't be up for Game of the Year. I still stand by that, but as we were told last year, apparently they can be. So yeah, we get 2 Game of the Year quality games in 1 week, and both in Game Pass with Expedition 33 and Oblivion.
And $50.
Yeah, $50, right? We need to talk about this. Right?
If only every company made an actual remake.
Yeah,
for this price.
Like, we could talk about Mario Kart's price at some point, but like the Zelda versions, right? The Switch 2 Zelda games, those are $70, right? And they look prettier. Don't get me wrong. They're slightly sharper. You have HDR, which is nice. Higher frame rate, awesome. But you look at that, and it's $70, and you look at this, and it's basically a Borderline remake, and it's $49.99. Like it just goes to show like the levels of protection other companies get. Yeah, Microsoft puts out this, and it's like nobody talks about it. Like, I know we see memes a lot on Twitter and stuff about like the price of eggs, but when it comes to video games going up in price and consoles go up in price all of a sudden, but yet this massive game, which some people are going to put hundreds of hours into, it's $49.99. Like, not, and I've used the term forced $70. It's because it is forced. These video games have no right of being like $70. And I'm using dollars because 90% of the people watching are from the US. But games being $70, there's no need for it, right? Games, in fact, I think most games shouldn't even be $60. You have companies looking at wanting to charge 80 or 90, and like people are thinking Rockstar's going to charge 100. They won't, but it's Take-Two. But my God, like that studio, they struck gold with this remaster. Not enough good things I can say about it. There is some premium deluxe edition like DLC you can get for the game. It's got I think it's $10 upgrade. We get some like fancy horse armor stuff and like armor for your character. But honestly, it's great. And the fact that you can see Skyrim when you go to the very top of the map, like that's super cool. And people have noticed that you can see Hammerfell over one of the mountains, which is where the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be set. Like, that is such a cool Easter egg. Like, that is, I want to say, like, GTA Vice City teased in GTA 3 type thing, right? That's such a cool thing. There's not enough good things.
Have you seen the Anakin one?
Yeah, the Anakin Skywalker Easter egg. I mean, there's so many Easter eggs they've put in this. You can tell they've had fun with it, but, man, like, we're going to be talking about Game Pass in a bit, but the thing is, when you talk positively about Game Pass, people are like, "Oh, you're a shill," but like the fact that I got these 2 games in Game Pass this week, it's ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. The only thing I can complain about, Daggerfall takes place in Hammerfall. I get them all mixed up. wherever Elder Scrolls 6 is set, that's in the Elder Scrolls remake. Um, but I mean the only bad thing I can say about this game is that it was 120 something gigabytes. Like that was a big download. Trying to make space for that, oof. And I'm I need to keep certain games on my Xbox at the minute. But like having to make room for that was tough. But all in all, the team did a great job. Like as someone that's seen many remasters and remakes release over the years, that team, they knocked it out of the park. You know, there were people complaining beforehand that, will they remove certain bugs? They didn't. Did they fix the ones that needed to be fixing? Yeah. Graphically and gameplay, it's just way better. And yeah, the color tone is different, but I don't really see it as a bad thing. I just think, look at it. Oh, it's Oblivion set at a different time of year, you know. But my God, that studio's cooking, and I'll never understand all the complaints we see about Unreal Engine 5. I've played a bunch of Unreal Engine 5 games this year. They're all good. South of Midnight, Avowed, Expedition 33, that's Unreal Engine 5, and now Oblivion. Basically, most of the big games coming this year are Unreal Engine 5, Dune Awakening, also a Virtuous title using Unreal Engine 5. Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta, that is, Unreal Engine 5. But yeah, great time to be a gamer. What can I say? I think, especially if you've never played Oblivion before, you're in for a treat. Because, if you go from playing like Skyrim or like, a bunch of like newer games and trying to play the original, it's going to be tough. Not going to lie. The way they do the whole menu system with start and select will throw people off. Thankfully, in this new one, it's more modern. I think millions of people are going to enjoy it. And like I've been saying for the past few weeks, like this is going to be a whole new Elder Scrolls game for millions of people. Because an entire generation have only played Skyrim, right? Skyrim's been memed about how many times it's released. But you have this whole new game there. And they absolutely cooked with this. What can I say? Logan, have you got anything else to say on Oblivion before we change topic?
Oh, just that I'm absolutely loving it. Congrats to Studio. They're definitely a real hot name right now.
Yeah.
Put them up there with, the idea of a Night Dive or a Blue Point or a Digital Eclipse, like experts in retouching, resurfacing, and bringing back and treating with respect titles. So they're definitely a name to watch going forward. And wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I have a feeling they probably already have another Bethesda RPG in the works that may be a little more radioactive.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I got so giddy about Oblivion releasing. I cancelled all my plans that day.
I know. I was so happy
because like when the original launched in 2006, it was kind of like past where it was originally meant to come out. But I mean, when you played that game in 2006 and you step out into the open world, like that was very much a generational like defining moment. Because Gears of War hadn't launched at that point, I believe. And that was the game to push people to buy a lot of 360s, and like to play that game on a PC at the time, you needed an absolute monster of a rig to play Oblivion on a PC. But like this was a huge thing and if people like video game documentaries, I highly recommend No Clip. They put out video game documentaries all the time. They put out one for Oblivion 2006, I think like 2 days ago. Highly recommend it. It's Oblivion is a part of gaming history, and for people that haven't played Oblivion before, maybe you only played Skyrim, like seeing people's reactions online to this, like it was Christmas 2.0. Some people thought for years we would never see something like this because Skyrim printed money, right? Don't get me wrong, Oblivion sold, I think, 10 million copies overall, I think, over the entire generation. But like Skyrim did so much better. It was on more platforms. It was out of the gate an instant success. And, a lot of those people, their only Elder Scrolls game was that. So I bet this whole experience has basically made Microsoft look at remasters and remakes differently. Because out of all the publishers, they actually put out the least amount of ports. So who knows what's going to happen next? And of course, we'll be talking about Fallout in a minute. Now, we'll talk about this quickly because it could affect a lot. Actually, no, we'll get some smaller stuff out of the way. So FarCry 4 is coming to Game Pass. It either is today or this week. And that game is getting a 60 FPS patch, a native one. And I know a lot of people have been wanting this. And my prediction is true. I've talked to Logan about this behind the scenes. My prediction is that every Ubisoft game that comes to Game Pass all of a sudden gets a frame rate enhancement. Turns out that's the case. Hey, it's good marketing. Gets more people to play the game. They didn't really go into detail if it was going to get a resolution bump as well. Because if I remember correctly, Far Cry 4 is 900p still. So hopefully they've changed that. That would look really nice in native 4K. But yeah, that's coming soon. Now, the only piece of bad news, which we'll get out of the way now, is that every so often a video game developer will put out a post on social media of a still image with a bunch of text. And we always know what that means. A game is either getting delayed or cancelled. Respawn today came out with one out of nowhere, and they didn't really mention any games. They said that 2 incubation projects are now cancelled, and they are solely concentrating on Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi. Now, if you read between the lines, one of them is basically a Titanfall experience, allegedly a Titanfall extraction game. This will be the 3rd Titanfall project that's been cancelled in 5 years, apparently. And the other one, it was a different Star Wars game, which wasn't the Mandalorian game, which was apparently pretty far through development. Either way, a bunch of games have been cancelled, and honestly, I can only sequel beg for Titanfall 3 so many times. I'll continue to do it, but what a sad day for Titanfall as a franchise, because Apex Legends, let me tell you, I'm going to rant a bit. Let me tell you, as someone that actively really enjoys Warzone now, Apex is terrible. Putting it out there, right? I've tried Apex a bunch of times. Its gameplay is nowhere near as good as Titanfall. Not even close. And Titanfall has mechs, so instantly better right there. Apex Legends is not fun. The way they do battle passes is a joke, and honestly, I think that I don't know who plays that game, right? Who plays Apex Legends? I never see people on social media posting clips of Apex Legends. It's always Warzone or Fortnite. But Apex Legends exists, and it takes all of the attention away from Titanfall going forward, which is sad. And, when it comes to Star Wars games, EA has basically said in the past that, look, as soon as the Jedi games are done, they aren't going to do any more Star Wars games, which I think it's really sad because, they are basically one of the only AAA Star Wars developers. So who knows what the future holds with them, but what a dark day for Titanfall fans, because another day, another Titanfall cancellation, and even though it was a extraction game, for people who have been following the channel for a while at least, you'll know that I've been looking for an extraction shooter on console, and now I find out it was a Titanfall extraction game. I'm going to jump off a bridge. Anyway, Logan, what's your take on it? Because it's a dark day for Titanfall fans.
Yeah, it just sucks. I don't know why EA just keeps blueballing Titanfall fans so much. Like, they keep starting up a Titanfall game and then canceling it. It's like they can't make up their mind what a Titanfall game is. Do they just lose creative oomph for it? Is it a financing problem? Is it a resources and staffing problem? Is it EA management constantly breathing down their neck about something and they're having to find ways to monetize it? Like, I don't know what the deal is, but they have been a giant cluster cluck when it comes to managing Titanfall and everything. But, name a more iconic duo than EA and, canceling a game or shutting down a studio. They're like the Grim Reapers of the industry for a reason. So it's a bummer, but, I'm just personally thankful that Jedi Survivor sequel is
Yeah.
safe and it's, continuing on as is because like I absolutely adore Fallen Order and then Survivor's like even better. Like I put it up with Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, like
Yeah.
best of the best Star Wars stories period. So I cannot wait for this end to the trilogy, whatever they end up calling the third one. And I'm also looking forward to that Star Wars Tactics Clone Wars game that's coming out, which looks fantastic as well. But to me, maybe it's not the worst thing that EA doesn't do Star Wars for a little bit because, like, they'll do Jedi whatever ends up being right. I believe they will because they're obligated. They've made two great ones. Respawn knows what they're doing. But they canceled or you know, bogged down or caused so many issues for so many other Star Wars games over that exclusive period. Where frankly, I think some other people need to take on the mantle because I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Yeah, I still can't believe they had exclusive rights to make Star Wars games for like almost a decade. Like,
One of people want to talk about poor Disney management and of Star Wars in particular. I think the games aspect gets
yeah,
severely overlooked. They had the big galaxy brain idea to take it from where everybody who had good pitches and were good studios that could make good Star Wars games like it used to be during the OG Xbox and early 360 PS3 era to only EA is going to be in charge of Star Wars games for a decade. And then lo and behold, they completely screw around and cancel a whole bunch of awesome ones that were in development, or they never see the light of day, or they launch incredibly predatory with mechanics and things, and the Disney has to call them and tell them, fix it,
yeah.
basically. An ultimatum to get them to change things. It's just they they rebounded well with Jedi games, and I'm thrilled that they're awesome, and I love them. I'm so happy they exist, but I frankly don't want them touching Star Wars again. Like, get it to somebody else, please.
Yeah, I mean, Zero Company does look good, and I'm sure Jedi Survivor sequel will be good. I mean, bloody hell, that last game is one of the few games I ever gave a 10. So like,
Mm-hmm.
and Respawn, they are basically one of the best developers EA has, and I'll say
100%.
they're better than BioWare. Um, but yeah, it's a shame. And like, look, I don't like calling games bad or calling them trash or rubbish or whatever. And maybe I'm a little bit salty. Admittedly, maybe I'm a teensy tiny little bit, salty. Apex, I'm so annoyed by Apex existing. Titanfall comes out in 2014. It's on Xbox One, Xbox 360, and PS3, and it sold 11 million copies. 11 million copies. And then the sequel comes out. It has a single player campaign. People love it. In fact, I put it up there with Half-Life 2. Um, and the multiplayer for Titanfall 2 was awful compared to the first game. That first game, you were playing with, like, I think it was like 30 other players or something. You drop down in Titans, or Titans would drop down. You'd get to run around, and there's like NPC characters running all over the place, so the map always felt filled out. And then what happened in the sequel? The maps weren't as organic as the original. They were terrible maps. When you called down a mech from space, you had to run around collecting shield batteries. so that you could literally call down a Titan from space. You'd have to run around collecting batteries. Otherwise, a random pilot could take out a Titan with just a few shots of a handgun, basically. And, EA decided to launch it right in between Call of Duty and Battlefield, right? So, like, they picked the worst time to launch the game. And, the game did really bad in sales. Over time, I think it's actually done pretty well, but like in the short term, it's done pretty bad. And then they came out with Apex Legends, which, look, that was trying to chase Fortnite. I'm pretty sure it did well during the first 2 lockdowns. But my God, Apex that isn't it. That's just not what people want. Apex Legends, you have gunplay that is, I'd say, is on par with an early 360 game. I might be being a bit harsh there, but Titanfall's gunplay was borderline perfect. In fact, Titanfall was so much faster than Call of Duty, they actually had to slow it down for Call of Duty players in the sequel. And now, obviously, Call of Duty is a fast franchise, but my God, I don't know what they were thinking. Apex Legends, like, why does that exist? And, I saw before, like, Apex is one of those games where it's a battle pass game. It basically prints EA money. And that's basically why it has all eyes at Respawn on it, unfortunately. But, man, a sad time for Titanfall fans. So that is it feels like 3 Titanfall cancellations in the past year. We can only take so many. Like, I really don't want to see any more of these. I'd rather just not know about them. And I did say, like, what other publisher would I want to see make a Star Wars game? Honestly, I would have said Embracer a year ago. Maybe not. Yeah,
Careful.
yeah. They'll probably like cancel the whole bloody franchise. Honestly, I don't know who I'd like to see, make a Star Wars game. I would say
Obsidian.
Obsidian. I'd like to see them maybe do a Star Wars game. I'd love to see Ubisoft take another crack at a bounty hunter game or a smuggler game, because like they have the talent there. Just let them, give them the time. We kind of running short on like third party publishers. Oh, I tell you who, I'd like to see Focus Entertainment.
They'd be perfect.
Yeah, they come out with unique games all the time. Maybe even Saber Interactive. I gush over Space Marine 2 basically on a daily basis. So allegedly, this wasn't a topic. Allegedly, they making a Transformers game. I don't know how true that is, but it does seem like something they could do. But yes,
Cool.
Saber Interactive, Focus Entertainment, Ubisoft, any of them, basically.
Larian.
Yeah. Larian, they are making 2 new games at the minute. So, can you imagine a Baldur's Gate Star Wars? My God.
Not the Old Republic.
Yeah, basically.
Essentially.
Yeah. But I mean, look, I'm not wanting to hate on EA. They've put out some amazing games in the past, and they will continue to put out amazing games. Like, they're making a single-player Iron Man game made by Motive Studio, and I'm sure they're going to knock it out of the park. But just like the fact that we had basically a whole decade almost of them making Star Wars games, they cancelled a bunch of single-player Star Wars games because they thought they wouldn't make money. They put out Star Wars Battlefront 2, which bled money. Like you said, Disney had to call them up and tell EA off like they were a child at school, right? And then they pulled the ripcord quick on those microtransactions. And, EA, like, they had so many games cancelled. There was a Bounty Hunter game in development at one point. There was a proper Star Wars Battlefront 3 in development at one point. But, like, I could go on. They cancelled so many Star Wars games. And what did we get last generation? We had Star Wars Battlefront 1, no campaign, multiplayer only. We had Star Wars Battlefront 2. It had a campaign and multiplayer, but it had a disaster launch with microtransactions. Then we had Star Wars Squadrons, which it's a fun game, by the way. No microtransactions, which is nice. Although I think the multiplayer mode is pretty dead on that. And then we got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is that is the game that made EA completely change their minds on which studios can use what game engines, letting studios make single player only games. I mean, hell, the reason Dragon Age, the Veilguard, people can hate on it or not, but the reason that's single player is because of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. EA realized that, we can make money on single player games. So, EA, they can make good games. They can make good Star Wars games. But, I mean, look, there's very few things that scare me in life. Spiders being one of them. Super deep water. And, Mass Effect, right? The next Mass Effect game, that scares the living daylights out of me, right? Do you have any idea what a kind of emotional state I'm going to be in if that game, comes out and it's not in a good state, or if it's reviewed badly, or if it's the next game that gets the hate train? I'm going to need therapy for the rest of my life. So like these EA, be careful for my sake. But like, look, Star Wars Jedi Survivor 3 or whatever we want to call it, I'm sure it's in great hands. Titanfall, it's unfortunate that we just aren't going to get any more of them. And the way that story ends in Titanfall 2, it's a travesty we don't get a new game. Anyway, we've been talking for about an hour and 6 minutes now, the timer says. If you're enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. I hate doing these little ads, but it helps the channel and podcast grow and all that stuff. If you want to support the channel with super chats, it's greatly appreciated. Read anything out, answering anything. Anyway, let's continue. Let's talk about this, because this is actually kind of a big topic. So Randy Pitchford came out today on social media and talked about how Borderlands is changing its release date. Now, any time of year, that wouldn't really be big news. Well, they're changing it by, I think, 2 weeks. It now releases in September 12th. Now, a lot of people think this. I think this, and I know Logan thinks this. They are blatantly making way for Grand Theft Auto. I have a database of upcoming games coming to Xbox, and a lot of them just say 2025, summer 2025. October is really empty with releases, as is November, but I do know of some games that are coming out in November, but October is very empty. And Borderlands is going to be one of 2K's biggest games. They're going to have a good year. They came out with WWE 2K25 a couple of months ago. Did super well. It's going to sell really well for the rest of the year, especially with how WrestleMania turned out and SummerSlam coming in the summer. They have the Mafia, the Old Country, coming out in August, and they have Borderlands coming out in September. So they have a really good year this year outside of sports games. But Grand Theft Auto, Take-Two, 2K, they basically going to gobble up October. So I think we all on the same page, wondering like, why would you change the release date? Because look, it was going straight up against Marathon. Now you can't really say those two games are competing with each other. One's an extraction shooter, one's Borderlands, which is it's an open world first person shooter action adventure loot game, right? You can't really compare the two. But them getting out of the way for GTA, because when GTA gets release date announcement, you're not going to have games come out a week before, because why would you buy a game a week before that game? That's basically why, in my opinion. I could be talking a load of crap, and it could just be for no reason. But Take-Two are adamant that, yes, Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out this year. That just seems like the most logical step to me. Borderlands 4 is September 12th. So, in between that and, let's say midway through October, Borderlands will probably sell millions of copies in that time. They're going to have huge success with it. I mean, Borderlands always does well. I think the only thing people didn't like about Borderlands 3 was the antagonist, or antagonists. Logan, did you ever get to play Borderlands 3?
No, it's funny. I have the ultimate and everything, and I never got around to playing the third one yet. I kind of was burnt out on the formula, and then the fact that basically the antagonists were like TikTokers
Yep.
or Instagram
Yep.
influencers. I was like, give me a break. No.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, and Borderlands 4, it looked better, it played better than the previous ones, but the antagonists in the game were basically Instagram and TikTokers of space, and it was so cringy. They were chasing these weird trends at the time. Um,
Ibbity.
yes, or like I know developers from Borderlands 4 have said like they're not going to have any of that in this game. Like Skibbity Toilet and all that stuff. I still don't know what the hell that is, by the way. It's like
I don't either,
it,
frankly.
it's like a Gary's mod head sticking out of a toilet, and that's a thing. Okay, like. By the way, I'm gonna go on a bit of a tangent. I don't get these weird trends out of nowhere, right? I may sound like an old fart, but I don't care. People throwing the popcorn in the cinema because Jack Black says chicken jockey. What is that? Like, I played Minecraft. Chicken jockey isn't a thing, right? So like, anyway, this is my old man yells at cloud moment, because I just
Yeah.
I do not get this whole what Gen Z or Gen Alpha humor. Like, it's not humor, it's stupid. Um, but yeah, thankfully Borderlands 4 won't have any of that. It doesn't need any of that. They just need a solid antagonist, great enemies, and Borderlands is really good with enemy design. And let's face it, you really play those games for the weapon types. Like, I had a weapon in Borderlands, I think it was Borderlands 2, where I basically had an assault rifle that fired exploding burgers, and it doesn't make sense really, but it was a good gun and it played well. Um, but yeah, what can I say? I think it's going to be a good game. If they can get it out in time. Uh, the problem is all these publishers are looking at Grand Theft Auto like it's this big scary monster. Like, and maybe it's because I've been down on the whole Grand Theft Auto 6 thing in the past. Maybe I'm bitter. Let's say I'm bitter, right? Because I know I won't get single player DLC. The game's going to come out in October apparently. I'm going to finish it in 30 hours and then have no new GTA to play till what, 2037? If I'm lucky. you know. Um I have, by the way, I have been told I sound bitter when I talk about Grand Theft Auto. Um Man, we were meant to have 8 expansions for GTA 5. 8 expansions. And all that
We
got,
got shark cards instead, baby.
yeah, we got shark cards and just a pile of online crap. And by the way, I did actually have to double check my GTA stats because I was clearly off. For some reason, I thought I put 37,000 hours in. That's literal years or something. It turns out I put in like 3,700 hours in. So still an obscene amount of time in like a year and a half into GTA Online. But like that online mode, it's slop. It is pure slop, and I was addicted to it. But yeah, Borderlands. It's changed date. It's clearly for Grand Theft Auto. Logan, have you got anything else to say on it moving date?
Just that, yeah, like to me it screams GTA 6 because
Yeah.
um the fact that they're owned by 2K as well, obviously they would be given a heads up for when it's a good idea for us to release a game or not. And if they get word that GTA is going to be in a certain window, then if you want to have a successful game, you put your game in a different window. So it to me, I think it's pretty clear that's what that is.
Yeah. We'll talk about this quickly because Grand Theft Auto 4 is now 17 years old.
Oh goodness, they
Yeah,
can buy the game now.
basically. And the funny thing is, like, that game launched with a multiplayer mode. There's no microtransactions, none at all. You buy the game and that's it. But if you want, you can buy the single player expansions, and the expansions in that game are fantastic. You have the Lost and the Damned, you have the Ballad of Gay Tony. They are basically whole GTA games, just set in the same map. Um, what a better time, you know. I got into so many arguments playing GTA Online back then. Like, people think Modern Warfare lobbies were bad. No, Grand Theft Auto 4 lobbies. That was that was like a war zone. The way people talked back then, you you can't even say half that now, and you really wouldn't want to or want to even hear it. But my God, like, uh, we may reminisce about the seventh gen a lot, but that was just so much better. um, what can I say? I do miss when Rockstar were mainly putting out single player games. You know,
They took risks.
yeah, like Red Dead Redemption. Like, nobody thought an open world, you know, Wild West game was going to do well in 2010, right? You had
For
these,
Bully.
yeah, Bully.
Yeah.
Bully did well. Max Payne 3, um, that still has some of the best third person shooting mechanics ever.
Hmm.
You know, they had Midnight Club, LA Noir, and now it's like, what, we get one game a decade, if that. And yeah, and we're gonna get a bunch of multiplayer slop for the online mode. Again, I know I sound bitter, but still, like, I want. Honestly, I prefer Rockstar to go back to making smaller games and having few games every few years. Um, you know, I think this topic comes up a lot. I think GTA 6 cannot live up to people's expectations. It just can't. That's like, I'd say more so than Half-Life 3. You know, Valve, I do think they can pull off Half-Life 3. I think they will. Um,
Hmm.
but like, Rockstar Games, like, if you've played Red Dead Redemption 2, like, I can't see them outdoing that. Yeah, you're gonna have some shiny cars and newer graphics, but I would be shocked if they can make a game, especially with Dan Houser gone. Um, I seriously can't see them making a game that people are going to be like, okay, that's a 10 out of 10, masterpiece. And I'll put it out there, I think Red Dead Redemption is a better franchise. Uh, you know, I'll probably get chased down the street for saying that, but yeah, it is what it is.
Story wise, it hits me a lot more than GTA does.
Yeah, I mean, really think about it. Red Dead Redemption 2, like, if you play it at a brisk pace, that's like a 90-hour game, right? Do some side stuff, maybe you do some treasure hunting. But in, like, Grand Theft Auto 5, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I think it's a really good game. But if you play that at a brisk pace, it's what, 20-hour story, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, seems like I have a weekly rant about Grand Theft Auto and the state of Rockstar games. Again, I'm probably bitter because I don't have, actual content to play by them anymore.
Could
Anyway,
you imagine modern Rockstar trying to pull off a manhunt type game or a agent or some of these other edgier stuff that they used to come out with?
yeah, I would love a modern Manhunt, but I mean, if I remember correctly, I think the first game got banned eventually in the UK, or might have been the sequel.
The sequel, I think, was like straight up banned,
Yeah,
and then I
that
think
might have
the
been it.
first one had to be heavily censored.
Yeah, I had one of the copies of the first game that wasn't censored, but like, that's all people were talking about at the time. Like, how does this game exist? And like, if people have never played Manhunt, wild. Like,
It's backwards compatible, by the way.
yeah,
OG Xbox version.
and like, that game is so violent. But I could never see Rockstar pulling that off now. I mean, the way society is, like, the some of the, executions and stuff you could do in that game, that would not fly today at all.
It's like Conquer. I just think it's probably just not going to happen today.
Yeah, yeah. God, like now you mentioned, like imagine if Conker came out today with that humor.
Oh, it get canceled like within a week.
Yeah. But yeah, Rockstar Games, man. I might be bitter, but I just want I want an LA Noir 2. Maybe set it in obviously like New York or something, or whatever new version of New York they want to make. Hell, set it in Liberty City, you know. Um, but yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? We still have a bunch of topics to talk about. Okay, so Elsewhere Entertainment, which is a new studio made by Activision. I believe they formed the studio a year and a half ago. They kind of updated their page today on LinkedIn. So they have a new logo, whoop-de-doo. But they have a description now. And they are classed as working on a new narrative-based and genre-defining AAA franchise. Now, it being an Activision game, we don't really know if it's going to be single player or live service. Whenever a developer uses the term genre defining, that kind of puts me on like the back of my feet thinking, really? Because we hear this a lot. Multiplayer games come out and
Quadruple A.
yeah, quadruple A, pirate game type thing. I mean, look, if this is them getting developers on board that maybe worked on like Singularity or more of Activision single player stuff in the past and working on something new, I'm all for it. It just means more games. But the reason I think that is because I honestly can't see Activision leaning into more live service stuff because they already have, Overwatch 2 doing its thing. They have World of Warcraft doing its thing. They have Call of Duty. I really can't see many other avenues they can take for live service on Activision's end because they already have Warzone pumping out money, Warcraft and all that stuff. So to me, this screams single player. That might be copium. It might be. But to me, that screams single player. Now, Logan, I know you want to talk about this, but it is just a studio and its description, but my hopes are on single player at this point.
Yeah, and to me, I think there are some tea leaves you can kind of read about this whole situation. First off, it's a studio in Poland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which is a very talent-rich area that has kind of become a new hub in gaming. Usually when you think of game developers, you think of Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, you think of Austin, Texas, you think of New York. There's quite a few developers in Florida, Louisiana, and then, Canada has a lot, and then obviously the UK. China has become an emerging power. Japan is obviously a mainstay. Korea is really ramping up. But Poland has been kind of like this looming area ever since CD Projekt Red emerged and GOG has emerged. And People Can Fly is a smaller studio. They're there. There's some other studios. I think Bloober's from there as well, if I'm not mistaken. But so it's really good to see them open another studio in another market, another key place that's talent rich and emerging and kind of get in from the ground floor and to build this up with elite talent. And the fact that it's narrative focused, to me, that does seem single player more so than multiplayer. Not to say there might not be some multiplayer in it or elements, but for the most part, when you hear narrative focused or a narrative tailored experience, it's generally like an Expedition 33 or a something like that where it's like this heavy focus on story and experience of world and gameplay characters. That's kind of what I'm picturing. And I know there's at one point there was some RPG in development by some Activision studio as well. Whether that's this one or something else, I don't know. But it does seem like Activision is finally starting to either let some of their older studios maybe go back to the drawing board and do some other stuff. Like, hopefully, a Raven or a High Moon can do some other outside of COD stuff again. Or they're letting new studios get developed to just start fresh completely. Like, do whatever you want. And that's just a really good sign.
Yeah, you've got to wonder like what happened to all the creative directors from like Raven and High Noon and all that stuff. So like they have the talent still to make more single player games, and hopefully that's that. But yeah, seeing Activision make more games again, at least it puts a smile on my face because they basically, if you remove Blizzard from the scenario, uh, it's just Call of Duty.
I like Call of Duty, but it has become the COD mines and the COD machine.
Yeah. And to see all that talent make those those map packs and whatever they put out, like no, right? Because like seeing those logos at the end of the credits for the campaign, it's like okay, cool, they did help it out, but like they're making multiplayer stuff a lot of the time. Like it seems like wasted talent to me. Um, we will talk about the Call of Duty leaks next week because that's a whole kettle of fish altogether. But yeah, new studio making a new game, hopefully single player. Anyway, we'll move on. Oh my god, we still have like 8 bloody topics left. You know what? We'll go over this quickly. So Game Pass is once again a target online, and it seems like it's like a never-ending cycle. So one of the creators of Palworld put out basically a tweet on about how, like, look, Expedition 33 is now the latest target for is Game Pass cannibalizing sales, right? And bear in mind, this guy basically runs and owns Palworld. Palworld had huge success. I think it had like 14 million players in like a month or something absurd. And basically he said, look, Game Pass helps, studios succeed. And then this blogger, I'm calling him a blogger, comes out of nowhere, quote tweets him and says, hey, it does actually cannibalize sales and all this stuff. And the whole topics came up again, like, Bookie's a social media guy, but like they know what they're talking about, right? That's their game. And you have this blogger, which I won't name because I don't want to give them like any attention at all. That said, I'm talking about the situation. You have someone that isn't really in the gaming space when it comes to studios, but is just a blogger online who crap talks Game Pass on a daily basis. And we live in this weird world where, we meant to believe a blogger over someone that works with a studio. Right? Make that make sense. Right? Game Pass, does it cannibalize sales? Well, if you think about it, it is going to cannibalize some sales. Technically, it has to, because what would be the point of the service existing, right? So you're not going to have, let's say, 7 million people that were planning on buying a game, and then all of a sudden it's in Game Pass, and all 7 million people just buy it anyway. Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? We live in an age where people are celebrating games going up in price, but want a dog on a really good service. That blows my mind. People say, "Oh, we want to support." You need to support the developers. You need to buy your games. Yeah, when a game launches in a similar service by a different company, it gets a pass. Like FBC Firebreak launches in Game Pass and PlayStation Plus in, I think it's July, right? Or it might be September. I'll have to double check. But like that game launches in both services day one, out of the bloody gate. That's gonna have millions of players day one. Right? I don't see people on Twitter or like social media. I don't see bloggers complaining about this, but it's just when a game launches in Game Pass and gets lots of attention. The same thing happened with Descenders. The same thing happened with Palworld. It's happening with Expedition 33, and it's going to continue to happen. But for some reason, it doesn't happen when other games launch in other services. It's mind-boggling. You have certain studios wanting to release their games at $80. Some studios talking about 90 or 100. Yet this blogger doesn't report any of that stuff. They don't look. They don't ask these developers, "Hey, why is your game $80 all of a sudden?" We have to wonder if these games are actually doing okay in the service. Like when Microsoft puts a game in Game Pass, the studio gets heavily compensated. Right? In the past, some of these games have had their entire development budget made back just off the Game Pass deal. Right? And people are wondering, like, do these developers still get support? Like, it's stupid at this point. Logan, I know we both talk positively about Game Pass because it's a good deal, but like, what's your take on this? Because it's another game, and it's the same people coming out of the woodwork complaining about Game Pass, even though a lot of these people in the gaming industry space, journalists, bloggers, they don't know anything about the Xbox ecosystem. They're so much in their own world that
Yeah,
they know nothing.
yeah, it's comical and it's typical and it's to be expected at this point. You know, when rent's due, there are several topics you can always spin up to bring out. And whenever a big title launches in Game Pass, that's from a third party publisher, especially. Um, like, you know, Expedition 33, for example, we already know it's doing incredibly well. Like, 1 million copies in 48 hours for a debut title from a small team. Like, you would think, hello, you're clearly doing awesome. And this is in addition to whatever they're getting from Game Pass. Xbox and everything. So, and Xbox gave them a whole bunch of marketing and showed them at several of their shows and had deep dives and breakdowns into it. Like they market it like a first party title, honestly. Like they gave them the red carpet treatment. And that's not me trying to, make a fluff piece and say it's an Xbox exclusive or anything goofy like that. I'm just saying like clearly putting a game in Game Pass, it gives you some kudos and perks and some other things that go outside of just financial as well. Like word of mouth, ease of access. Like I have played a bunch of games in Game Pass I frankly wouldn't have touched with a 10-foot pole without it. And then some of them I'm like, oh yeah, there's a reason why I didn't think I'd play it. I just don't vibe with this. And you know what? I saved a whole bunch of money by not buying it and playing it. But there have been some that I've been like, wow, I've discovered a whole new genre I never would have played before. I love this. Or I love this series and I buy them and I buy the series. Or I'm like, wow, this developer, it's like the meme from Phantom Menace. It's like, I'll be watching your career with great interest. Like, I am I'm down for whatever this studio cooks up going forward. Like, I love their work and what they're doing. And, Game Pass, it gives these people a huge money bag. Like, we don't have specifics about percentages or, like the amount of money per se, but it is considered a substantial amount of money and investment into a title for them to put their game in Game Pass. They're not going like, hey, put your game in our service and hope it does well. And if it doesn't, well, you know what? You tried. It's not that they're getting some value clearly. Otherwise, they wouldn't put their game in there to begin with. Like Power World devs were saying, like it was a massive deal that their game was in Game Pass to launch because it was an experimental title. It came out, all these people had day one access, could play it, and then a lot of people bought it and liked it and it blew up and then it went to other platforms and it's gone, crazy. Like it allows so much more word of mouth and like you said, it allows the opportunity to like shadow drop like an Oblivion or a Hi-Fi Rush or some of these other titles that if you didn't have Game Pass cushion in there and ways to generate some other stuff, it might make those less of a possibility. It to me it would be sorry, it's a long-winded topic, but to me it would be more of an issue if it was like a Netflix or Disney Plus or and Apple TV or whatever, to where I love those services, by the way. They have incredible movies, shows, games, whatever. But some of them lock their stuff down and never make it available to purchase to own either digitally or physically. And then, so the only way to get it is to get the service. Otherwise, you're cooked. Like, one of the best horror movies I've ever seen called The Ritual. It's a fantastic Lovecraftian movie about this group of friends who are going on a pilgrimage to honor a deceased friend who passed away. And they're carrying his ashes to this mountain, and then they get involved in all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like locked down on Netflix, and I wish I could buy it, but I can't. So, like, if they made it to where an Expedition 33 was only playable on Game Pass, nowhere else, or an Oblivion was only in Game Pass and you couldn't purchase it, or something like that, I would hear an argument and I would get it, and I would sympathize and relate. But the fact is, they let you do either or you can be like me and a bunch of other people who play it in Game Pass and then buy it at a later date when it's on sale, and you get the best of both. Like, there is no drawbacks to me.
Yeah. You know why I brought up this topic, because like it's forced BS, and here's how you can tell, right? Because
Hmm.
they complain about Game Pass all the time, and how it's taking away money from developers or whatever. It's taking away attention from these games. And why do these bloggers, and I'm calling them bloggers because that's what they are, why do these bloggers only talk about Game Pass, right? They never talk about PS Plus. Hell, they never talk about the games that do lock games behind a subscription service, right? They don't talk about Nintendo Online, where that's the only way you can play those games via backwards compatibility. You
Yeah,
can't
it's draconian ripoff.
Yeah, you can't fire up your Switch, or to be Switch 2, and play, let's say, Wind Waker, right? You can only play it via subscription. Yet these people, they don't mention this. They don't mention that Apple Arcade games are locked behind a subscription service, right? You can't buy these games that are in the subscription service. If they have, that it's changed recently, but like that GRPG that came out a few months ago, Fantasia Neo Dimension, right?
On sale, by the way.
Yeah, it's also on sale, and like, if you wanted to play that on mobile, you could only play it via a subscription of Apple Arcade, right? These people never talk about these subscription services. It's just Game Pass. Why? Because Xbox is the talking point all the time, right? People aren't talking about the things that need to be talked about. Why are game prices and hardware going up? Nobody bats an eye, right? But yet, Game Pass lets people play these games via a service day one, and people like the value. And it's like the scary boogeyman of the industry. It's a joke. It's a joke. These bloggers are a joke. I'll keep calling them bloggers because they don't do journalism. They just do clickbait, and it's tiring.
Yeah, they're blog boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I'll mention the Apple Arcade thing. There's been a ton of times I've been like, you know what, I'm going to get this game on mobile. Oceanhorn 2, right? Oceanhorn 2 was locked behind Apple Arcade. Thankfully, now you can buy it on console. But like, you have to subscribe to just play the game. You can't buy it. It's not even. It's listed on the store, but locked behind the service. It's stupid. But no, Game Pass is the worst one apparently. My God, can you imagine the reaction if Microsoft locked Xbox 360 games behind a paywall?
Oh, they'd get torn a new one and dragged through the streets. There would be all kinds of uproar. It would be just unholy, unhinged chaos.
Yeah, we would never hear the end of it. But other places do it, and it's completely fine. Why? Because they have that nostalgia factor from when they were kids, and they have their favorite console that's still their favorite platform, right? These consoles get a pass, and other services get a pass, but Game Pass is always the news. Anyway, we'll move on. Just wanted to talk about that quickly. So, 2 years ago, when the ABK leak happened, a lot of people like myself and Logan were happy because Oblivion was listed there. There was a bunch of other games like Indiana Jones, But another game that was listed was Fallout 3. Fallout 3 Remastered. And, a bunch of games on this list were basically delayed by 2 years due to the pandemic and all that stuff. Well, anyway, when Oblivion came out last week, it got a lot of people thinking, so Fallout 3 could be real then. Because apparently Virtuos have been working on this for a little over 2 years, and what they've done in that time is just bloody impressive. Don't know how you can remake all these assets in like 2 years, right? I know it's a French studio and they have a lot of people there, but my God, they did a great job. Well, a lot of eyes are on Fallout 3 next. I know mine are. I would be surprised if we don't see this launch next year alongside Fallout Season 2 on Amazon. Because
I think that's a smart take.
yeah, because like when Fallout Season 1 came out, like Fallout was in so many people's eyes that Fallout 4 was number one across all of Europe. Right, this decade-old game almost, everyone was playing it. Fallout 76 had new blood. People were excited to play Fallout 76. They've added a bunch since launch. But like people wanting Fallout again. Apparently Microsoft were like talking to Bethesda behind the scenes, wondering like, we need to get more Fallout now. Because like, look, Elder Scrolls 6, that's 2027, right? So when does Fallout 5 come? Does Microsoft make a new dedicated studio just for Fallout? Did they somehow get Todd Howard to oversee this new studio specifically for this, franchise? Or did they wait, But in the meantime, whatever happens, Fallout 3 Remastered was on that list. And, when that list originally leaks, Fallout was just listed as a remaster. And it got a lot of people kind of down about it, thinking, it's just going to be an up-res. Well, I think it's safe to say it wouldn't just be an up-res. Honestly, if they can just give it Fallout 4 style visuals, which is all it needs with Fallout 4 aiming, gameplay, I can totally see that happening next year. They're a decent-sized studio. They're working on multiple projects. Apparently a few aren't even announced yet. Virtuos, they are clearly the studio to do it. And, going by the timeline of this leak, it would launch next year, which would fill the gap in between now and, Elder Scrolls 6 in 2027. And I can see Microsoft launching one of these games maybe every year to kind of fill in the gaps in between the big releases of their RPGs, because they're not going to have a huge RPG launch every single year, but they could have a substantial remake or remaster. That looks like what Microsoft might be doing at this point, especially given the success of Elder Scrolls at the minute, because Elder Scrolls Oblivion, in the UK, it is the top 3 places on the Xbox Store. That's the Deluxe Edition upgrade, the Deluxe Edition, and the regular game. A game that's in Game Pass. So many people want Elder Scrolls that I think, if they do the same thing for Fallout 3, which it looks like they might, they're going to have millions of people talking about Fallout next year, alongside the TV show. Now, Logan, I've been talking non-stop for about 10 minutes. I know you're a Fallout 3 fan as well. What's your take? Because Fallout 3 was on that list.
Yeah, like for those who don't remember, like the list included Doom Year Zero, which is probably what became Doom Dark Ages. And then there was Oblivion Remake or Remaster, Fallout 3 Remake Remaster, Ghostwire Tokyo 2, and I can't remember what the other one was. There might have been one other game on there. But yeah, like for the most part, I mean, with Tango gone now, not as part of Xbox, that makes me think less of the Ghostwire idea, even though I loved it.
Yeah.
It makes me, think that's probably not going to happen. But the others have clearly been showing up, and like you said, they need Fallout content for when the Season 2 drops. Because even in the US, like you look at the charts in the US when it came out and how well it was doing, like in the top 25 ish, top 20 ish, 15, whatever. Like in the US, you had Fallout 4, you had Fallout 76, you had Fallout 3, and Fallout New Vegas all trending. And these are games like that, some of them date back to 360, like we said. And it just shows there's a clear passion and interest in this series. And, like, I love Todd. I love Bethesda. I love all they do. But at some point, you gotta, like, either take a step back or let somebody else cook as well, or maybe collaborate. Because if you make everybody wait until after Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, I mean, we're talking 2030s, and which is just mind-boggling to even say. But it just clearly there's a need for more Fallout. A Fallout 3 remaster makes perfect sense as a stopgap. To me, I this isn't sourced. I just have this sneaking suspicion that In Exile might tackle something Fallout related at some point. Like you look at the leadership, people involved directly with the creation of the entire franchise. Obsidian obviously has been intimately involved with Fallout, and they did New Vegas, which is incredible. Many people's favorite Fallout. Um, and you even see like an Avowed in their credits for the games they worked on. Some of the games they couldn't include, but they did include a nod to Fallout New Vegas in their opening credits, which I thought was interesting that they're tying Fallout to their studio as an identifier, not just some project that they had done. So putting two and two together, I wouldn't be surprised if Obsidian does work on something Fallout related in the near future. But yeah, we need Fallout and we need it soon.
Yeah, I mean, uh, as much as I love Elder Scrolls, like I'm more of a Fallout fan. Like Fallout 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. I will praise that game all day. It's just Fallout 3, its visuals and like its setting, it's kind of dated because everything in that game is a mixture of grey, green, and yellow all at the same time. So you'll have
It
like
had Liam Neeson in it. It was
yeah,
awesome.
but like bloody good game. Like even the expansions, Broken, was it Brotherhood of Steel? The Pit, Mothership Zeta, like all great expansions and all very different from each other. But like, I think obviously Virtuous is going to do their thing. That'll come out next year. I think that Fallout TV show doing as well as it did, and Microsoft seeing how well Fallout was doing last year, I think that might have made Microsoft and Bethesda think that they can no longer be a one new game a decade studio. Like there's too much money to be had with new Fallouts and new Elder Scrolls games. So like I think that, like you said, I think we will see things like In Exile and Obsidian make these games. Obsidian's proven they can make several games at the same time, albeit those have been smaller experiences, but I wouldn't necessarily say no to a smaller Fallout experience as well.
I'd take it day one.
Like I don't need a Fallout 3 size map, and that's a bloody huge map. But like I don't need that every single time. It would be cool to have stopgap games in between the big ones because, like you said, it's going to be like 2032, 2030 at best till Fallout 5. And if you're Microsoft and Bethesda, you don't want to wait till then to get a Fallout game out. Like there's way too much money there in a new Fallout game. Like, can you imagine the hype online that would have a brand new Fallout? Like
It'd be a
that's
megaton.
yeah. Like I wouldn't call it GTA level hype, but like it's up there, because we haven't had one since 2014 or 15. Yeah, 2015. So it's been a long time, but it looks like we could be seeing Fallout 3 remastered next year, which will make a lot of people happy. It will be interesting to see if will they want to go back and do older games because Morrowind is a very old game in comparison. Different gameplay systems and stuff. It's aged obviously the most. Like, could we get to a point where we see maybe Virtuous make like completely remake Morrowind from scratch.
That'd be sick. I'd love it.
And maybe some of the older games, I can't even remember what the first few Elder Scrolls games were called, but they were on
Arena and Dagger.
yeah, Daggerfall. That's it. Like Daggerfall, like that map is like one of the biggest game maps of all time or something. Um, Obviously it's a bit dated when you look at it now, but like impressive for its time. Like it would be interesting to see like what a modern studio could do with those games now, and especially considering how popular this new remaster is. Like if you're Microsoft, you're looking at those dollar signs thinking we need more of this. So where we are going to see new games every year from Microsoft, thankfully, it looks like we are going to have a new game that's maybe remastered every single year going forward. And you know what? That's a pretty cool thing to have. You know, I mean, hell, this year what we've had: Avowed, South of Midnight, Doom: The Dark Ages is about to drop. The Outer Worlds 2 is releasing later this year, but you also have things like Call of Duty, that Tony Hawk game in a few months, but also
Ninja Gaiden 4?
Ninja Gaiden. Like they're on a roll, man. Like people used to dog on Microsoft in the past for like having their releases either stacked all at the end of the year or really sporadic. And now they have so many games coming out. Like they have to shadow drop an Elder Scrolls game. Like they've listened over the years. Thankfully, their biggest problem for the longest time was that they didn't have enough studios making content. Now they have more studios, way more studios than basically anyone, to the point where they can shadow drop multiple games in 1 year. I mean, hell, Ninja Gaiden, that didn't leak at all, which I'm surprised by. Hopefully they work more with Japanese studios. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good year going forward. And like I said earlier on the show, the Elder Scrolls 6 thing, I'm 100% sure that teaser in Oblivion is 100% reference to Elder Scrolls 6 when you look over the corner of the map and you see the mountains from the Elder Scrolls 6 trailer. Again, I 100% believe that's 2027. It'll launch alongside the Xbox 6. I'm calling it Xbox 6. Bit of a tangent. I really hope Microsoft just ditches the weird naming conventions. Like, just go with a number. Like, people at first will be asking, why is it 6? Just, people will get over it. We don't need to call it Xbox Series X2, or anything like that. But yeah. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
One topic I did want to just briefly address, if we could, is the whole ID at Xbox thing. Like, they
Oh
keep
yeah, yeah.
popping up in the news. Um, Most of the time for good reason. Like, they're a good program. They bring a bunch of games to the Xbox. They do great work with indies, like some really fun games I have discovered through that program, and I love the talent and the group and the effort and the games they've been bringing. That being said, for some reason, they have been real sticklers about some stuff, and their policies or what they approve or disapprove or whatever for various reasons has become contentious. And online, you keep seeing games from either Japan or other places try to come here and they get approved on Nintendo. Which is a very family focused system company, by the way. It was controversial whenever they used to get a horror game or anything big. They're getting more, AAA adult style games, but for the most part, it's like if they approve it, you got to think it's all right. And then PlayStation it is more conservative than they are, but still, like compared to Xbox, like there's been like several notable things in the past few years that Xbox has either severely altered or not allowed to hit the platform that other platforms thought were fine, or took a few revisions and allowed it on, and it doesn't seem congruent. Like, I'm fine with companies having standards and, reasons for doing things or not, or like rules, but at least make it, concrete and simple and like easily shown to devs what can and can't fly on the platform. Because, for example, like the idea that games from Neo Geo console or a Sega Genesis or some old games getting ports are suddenly not viable or socially acceptable on the Xbox when they were perfectly fine back then seems odd. And like, especially like, these games aren't even my cup of tea, but like there are a lot of waifu games and stuff like that that make it to other platforms that for some reason don't make it to Xbox for various reasons, whether cultural or whatever. But it's just interesting that if it's for explicit adult content, then okay, that's fine if that's the rule you want to put on there. But it seems incongruent when you allow Cyberpunk or Baldur's Gate 3 or some of these other games that like allow full on like completely start, running around with any attire at all or graphic romance scenes or customizations and character screens or like extreme violence and stuff, but then you're allowing like games where you're a drug dealer or games like, all or other kinds of things, or it's like, oh, it's just these funny little anime girl games or whatever. It's like, nope, we're drawing the line here. Nope. And it's just not gonna happen. Like I said, not even my cup of tea. But I see kind of a hypocrisy or a double standard, and it just, I don't know. Like, clear up your guidelines, or like just make it clear what's acceptable and not, because it's annoying a lot of customers right now.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. I think it's a bit weird because, like, we'll use Cyberpunk 2077 as the best example. Like, everything is in that game. Like, everything.
Yeah, everything.
For people listening, like, I can't say certain things because, the YouTubes, but, like, everything is in Cyberpunk, right? Be it the posters on the walls and, like, the hotel or the apartment block you stay at, to, like, certain scenes with certain characters with Panam, for instance. uh, yeah. So, like, having censorship for waifus and stuff, that's a bit weird. You know, my way of saying it is like, let gamers have, the choice whether they want to play it or not, because it's not really hurting anyone. And plus, all these consoles we have, they have parental controls. So, like, if someone has their kid like an Xbox and the younger, well, the parents can easily like have the settings on their console so they can't see that stuff on the store or access it. So I don't see the problem. Like, Microsoft should allow these games on the console. There's no reason not to. They're missing out on money for it, and it's not really helping them expand in alternate regions where cloud is growing. Right, cloud is growing in Korea and Japan. Why not allow people to play these games? It's the dumbest thing, especially when you're wanting to get on people's good side, like Square Enix and all these other Japanese publishers. It makes no sense. Microsoft censoring games doesn't make sense because they run Windows, right? Windows basically plays anything. Have you seen? Obviously, I can't say the words, but have you seen the kinds of games on the Steam store?
They're shocking.
Yeah, like absolutely shocking, the type of stuff. But it's there. People can choose to not play it, and I think that's completely fine. But yeah, like censorship like this on this level, it shouldn't be a thing. I think Microsoft, they're doing way too much. Like again, drug dealer simulator, fine. Anime game with waifus, worst thing in the universe, right? The,
I know it's hilarious. It makes no sense.
and I know
Like
you,
they even used to have volleyball games and
yeah,
like that were actually fun volleyball games, like good games and some other stuff, but then like they pretend those never existed and didn't get those backwards compatible or some other stuff. It just feels like a weird like standard, like if you want to have a universal standard of this kind of content isn't acceptable on our platform, so be it, but at least be consistent because it on the surface it looks like you'll allow a European studio or an American studio that puts AAA lifelike stuff in it that is, some would be say unscrupulous versus, some cartoon thing and I don't know, it just doesn't make sense.
yeah. I mean, Microsoft. And you've mentioned this to me before in the DMs. Like, you you wouldn't be surprised if there's someone at ID at Xbox team that is actively against anime stuff. Like,
I mean, it's just weird. I have no idea what's going on. It seems like they just don't like it. I don't know.
yeah, and there was a game announced. I think it was like 2 months ago or something. It's basically anime GTA. And that was announced for PC and PlayStation, and it looks super cool. I can't remember that it's called Anata or something. And it looks super cool. It's basically Grand Theft Auto anime. And like, is that not coming to Xbox because of these rules? Like, that wouldn't surprise me. But again, it's like it's missing out on games for a reason that doesn't make sense, right? If it isn't the case of someone's paying to keep games off your platform, which is bad enough, but if you're not allowing these games on your platform because of your dumb little rules, come on, right? Like, people can be adults, they can police themselves. Like, if people don't want to play these games, they don't have to play them. It is a weird move. Hopefully, Microsoft, kind of stops doing it because look, like, how many people? And I'll use that Anata game or whatever it's called, Anatana or something. How many people are going to look at that trailer and think, "Oh, I want to play anime GTA," right? But then they can't on their Xbox, maybe due to some weird censorship rule, right? They are missing out on so much money, and all their players are going to be looking, "Oh, I may have to get an alternate console to play this game." Like, it doesn't benefit Microsoft in any way whatsoever, and it doesn't benefit the gamers, right? So, like, I don't know who these rules are for. Again, we have parental controls on consoles, so yeah. But hey, best thing people can do is literally just voice it on social media. Just do it politely. These developers, Idea Xbox, they will take notice. It did take like 4 years for Genshin Impact to come to Xbox, and Zenless Zone Zero comes to Xbox, I think, in July or June, which took ages. People were atting them all the time saying, "Hey, when's this coming to Xbox?" Thankfully, it is, but come on, like, if these games aren't paid for by a different company to like not go to these platforms for years, like 4 to 5 years waiting for these games, it's a bit much. Um, but yeah, Microsoft, please stop doing this. It's too much. It's not benefiting anyone. And I see it a lot now. I've seen it a lot this past month or so where X game can't come to Xbox because of some weird censorship rule. And like, Sony does censor games on their platform a lot. So does Nintendo. But like, it's rare that I see games outright get cancelled for PlayStation just because of some censorship rule. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, it makes you think of Ice Cube's chance of any Stellar Blade type game ever coming to Xbox as it stands currently. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what's going on with that because Stellar Blade was originally meant to come to Xbox. It was called Project Eve.
I remember.
And had the Xbox logo in the trailer and the artwork, and then it was announced to not come to Xbox. But I mean, people have called me fanboy in the past for Xbox. Like, look, I think they make an excellent product when it comes to the hardware and games, but they have all these tiny little missteps that if they just corrected them, they'd be in such a better place. You know, actually marketing your console, that would help. You know, marketing your first party games as big titles with big marketing cycles and actual merchandise and physical copies. You know, they ended the backwards compatible program too early. They don't let people know that their console is backwards compatible. You know, they ended the backwards compatible upgrades too early. They're doing this weird censorship thing with ID at Xbox and self-published titles. They don't allow certain developers print X amount of physical copies for their platform because who cares? You know, it's all these little tiny issues, but they could easily fix them overnight, and hopefully they do. But man, like, look, this is how we got screenshots back in the day. This is how we got, backwards compatibility back in the day. People just have to voice their opinions because, as stubborn as these companies are, they do pay attention if you voice it the right way.
It might be harder now because a bunch of the execs ran off of
Yeah,
Twitter. So, I mean, I don't blame them necessarily because a lot of people gave them heat, but I don't know. It's like, just voice your concerns.
yeah. You mentioned that there was a weird mass exodus from social media by the Xbox executives last year. As soon as all that stuff happened in January last year, like, I used to talk to Aaron Greenberg on social media all the time, and
Hmm.
all of them just kind of like bowed out. Sarah Bond, she does post on Threads a lot, but nobody's on Threads. You know, like, I make one post a week on Threads, and like, there's like not many people interacting with each other. Similar thing on Blue Sky, but that's still like newish. But yeah, like the Xbox executive, like Phil Spencer, always used to be interacting with the community on Twitter, and now he doesn't. And the first post he made in a long time was about Marathon. Right, this is one of these smaller things Microsoft needs to get back at. They were really good at doing the social media thing with the memes, interacting with the community, and they kind of lost that last year. They stopped doing it. Like, say people could say what they will about Xbox, but the community and the transparency between the developers and the community themselves always used to be really good. But now,
Hmm.
not that strong. They announced that there isn't going to be a fan fest in the US with this summer thing. I don't necessarily think that's a big deal because the way the digital showcases work now, maybe they're waiting for like the 20th anniversary event for the 360, which I think is what they're doing. And they did say stay tuned for future events this year. So I think that's what they're going to do. But, they were like the biggest corporation on earth, basically, uh, where they didn't have to be the most fan centric, but they were. They were always interacting with people, always listening to feedback. And I think the only person that I basically interact with sometimes on Twitter now, and that's Jason Ronald. I think he's the only person that does social media still on a regular basis.
Yeah, shout outs to Jason, the GOAT.
Yeah, he's one of the very few people at Xbox that do interact with people still on a regular basis. But yeah, Xbox, the censorship thing, they really need ended. But again, people voice your concerns. They will listen. I mean, if you can't buy a game you're looking forward to on Xbox due to some dumb reason someone has against waifus or whatever, that's their problem, right? It's weird. Anyway, everyone in chat's been amazing. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
No, just gaming's good. Be kind to each other. Enjoy life, and I expect we'll get some good gaming news before too long.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this week. I'll mention this quickly because it was a topic. Uh, so we typically have a Xbox partner preview in March, and as you can tell, March came and went. There was no Xbox partner preview. There's a bunch of third-party developers that haven't actually shown off their games yet that are still meant to release this year. So I have a theory that Microsoft had a partner preview planned, but I think they've scrapped it just so they could put everything in their summer showcase. Because they're going to have so many eyes on their summer showcase because, so many big releases and stuff. There's new Xbox games going to be announced there. I could just be, huff and copium at this point. But I think that they may have saved a bunch of the stuff that they would have had in that show for the summer showcase, alongside things like the Xbox ROG handheld, because they teased that thing like 2 days before the Switch was shown off, and then they went super quiet on it. Where like
I think the tariff spooked them, honestly.
yeah, the tariff thing could have spooked them, and the ROG in the UK, I think it still costs like £600. So I think they were waiting for the Switch 2 price. And I did notice that you can get a Switch 2 cheaper in in Japan, but it's region locked.
Of course it is.
By the way, that got a pass straight away by people, like region locking a console because it's cheaper. But hey,
Has Xbox done that? I can't remember Xbox doing that since like ever.
The 360 was region locked.
Okay.
But like if you lived in Europe, you could play apparently most other European games. But if you lived in Europe and you wanted to play like a US game, you couldn't. Same as vice versa, which is a shame because like if you're like me and you try and find new sealed 360 games, the region locking just made the situation worse. Like I'm always finding like random US copies of certain games, but I can't play them. So, and the way they do accounts means that you can't actually have multiple consoles set up with different regions in the same country. So, yeah, it was really archaic back in the 7th generation. The PS3 and the Wii, they were region locked as well. Thankfully, with Xbox One onwards, you could actually do, the region-free stuff. I mean, I think I've got a Japanese game somewhere. I think I actually bought Psycho Pass just for its artwork, and it's in Japanese. We have the first super chat of the day by Nick Wendland. Thank you for the $1.99. He says, I got a Switch 2. Look, we'll talk about this quickly because, still got time. I think the Switch 2, there's been a lot of drama online. Like, I think the Switch 2 is fairly priced. I think what they've been able to do with the console's hardware in such a compact shape, because, it's a tablet at the end of the day, and that you're going to be able to play things like, what's the new Metroid called? Metroid Prime Beyond.
Yeah, at 4.
Yeah, but you're going to be able to play it like 120 frames per second, and that's on like a tablet basically, and I think that's super cool. Like, Nintendo always used to get flack for not having the most powerful console, but like the GameCube, that was a powerful console at the time. The Nintendo 64, powerful console at the time. The SNES, powerful console. The NES, powerful console. Like, it's only really the Wii and the Wii U where the consoles weren't really that powerful. But I think the Switch 2 is going to be a huge success. I think it's going to be great. And this will be the first Switch or first Nintendo console in, a long time, more than 10 years, where they will get Call of Duty on it. So, like, people joke about Nintendo's prices, and I think the prices of their games are egregious, but the console, like, I think the console's fantastic. They've clearly fixed certain things, like the Joy-Cons don't get drift as easily apparently anymore, which is great. I mean, look, if you play games on a controller, there's a 99% chance you've had stick drift. Doesn't matter what platform, it's annoying as hell. But it looks like they fixed a lot of those things. The bezel's smaller on the Switch 2. I think the Switch 2 format, like, I think maybe the Xbox handheld might do the same thing, because if it's basically an Xbox Series S squeezed into a tablet, something on that level, that's super cool. You're going to get big AAA games on the thing, because one of the big things about the Switch when that came out is that they couldn't get big third-party games on there at launch because, the power difference with the Switch. And over time, you did have studios that could port games over, like The Witcher 3 and the Batman Arkham games. So they did get ports eventually. But, a lot of them, really bad performance, looked really bad. But, like, the Switch 2, I don't think it's going to have any of those issues. Most games right now get current gen and last gen releases. So, like, I think Nintendo, they're going to have really good time with this console. It's just, it's the small annoyances. I think people are gonna be really stuck with people. Like video game prices, having the what's the Logan? What's the name of those like e cards or something?
Yeah, it's like e-cards, where basically it's like instead of getting the game on the actual thing, it's like an upload, like basically like Xbox One Redux.
Yeah. But like outside that, do you know what's weird about that actually? Nintendo gamers mostly physical. Like whenever I've like talked to like Nintendo fans, like they have huge collections of physical media. And I
Mhm.
thought it was weird for Nintendo to do the e card route or whatever they're calling it. Um Weird move. But hey, I mean it is 2025, unfortunately everywhere is going digital. You know, like I was talking about this earlier in the day with Boomstick. Like in the UK, the physical media basically died off in 2012. Like way before the Xbox One came out, way before the PlayStation 4 came out. Game cards, that's it. Um, like like physical media kind of died then, because the way the game stores shut down. But like, if you're a Switch fan and you're looking at this like Switch 2, you're getting a way more powerful console. You're gonna get better frame rates, better resolutions in games, and like I'm not the like I don't think resolution make or break for a game, but like the Xbox One early on, those games looked a bit blurry, especially the third party games like Assassin's Creed 4 and stuff. But when we got the One X, it was like a completely new experience. And I think Switch 2 gamers or like Switch gamers, they're going to experience the same thing we had with the Xbox One X, right? You're going to have crystal clear games. And hell, on the One X, we still had things like 4K 60 games like Devil May Cry 5 and stuff. Uh, and I think as much as I'm like joking about the price and stuff, not really joking, I'm just annoyed by the price going up of games. But like, I think that Donkey Kong game looks a lot of fun. I think that playing the Zelda games with HDR, those things are going to be cool. The fact that you can share your creations in Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart going open world. They didn't mention the battle mode or if that's going to be a thing, but like, I do think Mario Maker will be a thing at some point. But like, if you play it a lot on Nintendo, you're going to be looking forward to a lot of stuff. Again, third party games coming over. I suspect that Call of Duty will be one of the big announcements in the next direct they have, which is apparently coming out in July, which I can totally see happening. But yeah, I mean, look, drama aside with the whole censorship thing, this year is looking bloody great for video games. We just had Oblivion Expedition 33 drop. There's games coming out soon. I have a huge video coming out tomorrow. The 20 biggest new games coming to Xbox in May. And yes, that's right. There's 20. Like there's so many games coming out this year, but if anyone complains, say that there's nothing coming out, I don't know why they're playing video games. There's something for everyone. There's a game coming out in June called Mind's Eye, which I've been talking about nonstop. And it's basically a third person cyberpunk open world game, kind of like in the vein of a GTA or Mafia. Uh, Not many people are talking about that, but I'm all over it. Like that game looks fantastic. But it's going to be a good time for everyone on all platforms. Joking aside. Uh, anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
Oh, just that I agree completely that the Switch price is perfectly reasonable. I think it looks like a great product. Like, it's one I'd want down the line. Like, I love Nintendo and their products. I do think the game pricing is less than stellar, but it's Nintendo. They'll get away with it. Like they get away with everything. They get away with charging $8 for a demo disc, for crying out loud. Um, and I think the games are going to be great. They look awesome. Mario Kart's going to be fun. Donkey Kong reminds me of like the old school like Donkey Kong 64 vibes. And the new Zelda's coming out, and then there'll be more Mario platformers. Like Metroid Prime 4 is going to be fantastic. Been waiting like a decade for that game, basically,
Yeah.
which is wild to think about. And yeah, so if you're a Nintendo fan, you're gonna be eating good. You're just gonna be eating for more because the prices are what they are. But I'm looking forward to playing some Nintendo stuff down the line. And yeah, like overall, it's gonna be a really good gaming year, and I'm excited. Can't wait for the showcases and stuff. And I have a prediction about the Activision games going to Xbox. I think what they're gonna do is like a rare replay or a like Bandai Namco museum type collection of older Call of Duties and put them on one thing. Like that's kind of what I'm predicting. Like maybe a volume 1 and a volume 2 of the older ones that are less beefy, and then maybe release the newer ones like one at a time. But I think they're gonna have a collection. That would be my guess.
I mean, that's a good shout out, because none of those games are available at all on Nintendo, not even
Like
via
Black
cloud.
Ops 1,
Yeah,
2.
like they could do, Call of Duty Master Collection 1 and Volume 2. They have enough bloody Call of Duty games to do it. Yeah, I could totally see that happening. That's a good one, actually. I mean, hell, I'd buy it. Like, I already have the Call of
Yeah.
Duty games. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good year. Anyway, we'll be back for a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast, same time next week. Might go a little bit earlier, depending on if I've gotten stuff done or not. My video should drop tomorrow. Hope you all enjoy it. It's taken a bloody month to put together. Again, it's a long video. Hope everyone enjoys it. We'll be back the same time next week. Hope everyone has a good day. We're out, everybody. Peace.